with the archaeologists.
So a path that was proposed a couple of years ago for, was it 60,000? Sorry.
It's fine.
I was trying to add more drama.
We're doing good.
$60,000 has now become 175,000.
Again, we're looking
I-
at treatment, yes.
But you are looking at
We're
a
looking at the concrete
different
surface.
style of path.
That is absolutely correct.
And we have blacktop paths all over the park system. I'm just asking why a blacktop path for that section wouldn't be just as good since, all over Memorial Park
Sure.
everywhere. So I'm just asking.
Again, it's looking at what the current built infrastructure is. The current infrastructure is a concrete sidewalk of 8 feet wide. And then we would mimic that coming through the park.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to call on Alderman Boyer.
Thank you. Our request to speak buttons have disappeared, so we can't push a button to talk. I guess my question is this. I seconded Todd's because I thought, 80 would do the trail. You're saying it won't do anything.
I won't say it won't do anything. I don't believe that we will be able to build that trail for 85,000.
And the lowest we could go down would be 175, you said, from the two?
Just a quick estimate.
Just off the top of your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would get the, excuse me, and that would potentially get the trail complete.
That would complete the trail from the east side where it terminates at Lakeshore Avenue through to the west side where we would then potentially hook up to the proposed sidewalk sites.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think we got your button thing fixed. So, okay. Any other questions of Director Kading or Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, so in essence, Mike's telling us that the 200,000 is to build a path, but then we're also going to accomplish the bump out and other stuff for like 25,000. Is that right? You said you need 175 to build a path.
Most of the pavement marking, most of the work in this parking lot is pavement markings, some signage. We would be looking at some sort of bump out. We've talked about just taking out the asphalt and putting in a mulched area. So then for snow storage, we don't have a concrete curb to hit. We haven't fully defined that plan, but if the dollars are only available for this amount, then that's where we're headed. But it's more to create a built infrastructure. So when you said if you just want to do the plans, most of the work is pavement markings.
Most of the work I just heard is the path.
I'm sorry. Most of the work in the parking lot for vehicular movements is the pavement markings.
And that's supposed to keep people from going through. Just like we have pavement markings
The
at.
bump out is the bump out, in my opinion, is the key to inhibiting. I won't say prohibiting because I don't think you're going to do it for everybody, but inhibiting that movement, that future vehicular movement past the lighthouse going towards Lakeshore Avenue.
So Jane's $200,000 won't buy the bump out, it won't buy pavement marking?
All of phase one of the
Yeah,
project.
that's what I thought. Right. So we're getting those bump outs for really cheap because he told me it's 175 to do the path. I don't know what I guess I don't want to be disrespectful, but that's what I heard.
But within the what Brian gave me, I'm sorry, it doesn't call out, okay, this bump out is this much. I'm giving you my best estimate.
Anyone else?
Can I ask what
Go ahead.
Alderman,
Okay.
Council President Stevenson's motion actually is at this point?
I'm 85,000. Yeah, I moved to adjust because I assumed we could build a path for $85,000, but now I'm being told that we need 175,000 to build a path. So I'll adjust my motion to 175,000 to build a path. I don't know how you're going to build a bump out for 25,000. Telling me we need 175 to build a path. I think I'm being played, but that's all right.
as far as the other items, I mean, I don't know, I really don't know, because we haven't been presented the plans, so I really don't know if they can be put into phase two and dealt with later, or if they're really not gonna cost that much, like we're guesstimating right now, and we can do it in the next phase. I don't know, because I don't know what phase two is. But I'm okay with getting the 175 so we can get the path.
Right? Alderman Stevenson has changed his motion to $175,000, and it is seconded by Alderman Boyette. This is on the amendment to Alderman Lang's motion. All in favor of Alderman Stevenson's motion to amend it to 175 will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. Is the clerk, the roll, please. That motion passes. Motion to passes 5-4. So the motion now becomes $175,000. Correct? Anyone on the new motion? Any comments or questions? Alderman Bates, go ahead.
Ah, hot in my mask here. I just want to say that I voted for the 175 because I think it's important to get the path in. I also think that if we need to do some work in the parking lot area, we do have Wisconsin Avenue at the end being worked on in a few years, and then maybe that could be the time that we mobilize all the equipment out that way. Maybe we'll have a little more time to figure out how to do a circular roundabout, getting those people out of there. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? So the motion is now $175,000 to increase public infrastructure, Kimberly Point pedestrian path parking lot project by $175,000, and this will be funded by ARPA fund. Alderman Spearms.
Just to clarify, this is just the walk, or the path, or sidewalk, or this includes?
According to what I heard, we can only, for 175,000, we can only build a path.
But that's not what the mayor just
I
read the
agree.
motion was.
He did mention the parking.
I would be willing to, I believe Director Katie doesn't have firm numbers. So it would be my thought, and we've done this, so there's 175,000 allocated to the project. If Director Kading believes he can get it all in there for 175, he'll bring that to the council, and the council can make that decision at that point. I would. But Todd is allocating 175.
Clarifying his motion, because it was, that's the path for.
Is that okay with you, Todd,
Well,
for the project, or you just want to stay the path home?
my intent was to build only the path, but suddenly it dwarfed to $175,000. So that's what we're going to build. And if we can, let's see what we can do for 175,000 now. Yes.
So it's possible, I suppose, that, Don, that he could come in with, say, hey, I can do the whole project, including the parking.
Yeah, that's
thing
fine, I just want to
for
know what I'm
175.
voting for.
But the council at that time will have to make a decision if they want to
Yep.
expand, but Alderman Stevens' motion is just, okay, right? Is that how you understand it? Okay. All in favor of the motion will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. The clerk opens the roll, please. Kathy,
No, I'm,
there you go. Right, that motion passes 9-0. Alderman Ling. Hang on. It is what time? 9:45. Council like to take a 5-minute break? Okay, let's do that. We will take a 5-minute break at this point and come back and 5 to 7 minutes. Thanks. Ready? All right. We are back in order from our little break here, and we will continue on. Item number 10, introduced by Alderman Lang. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The North Park sidewalk on the east side had been in the budget and then was removed from the budget. I'd like to reintroduce funding for sidewalk on the west side of North Park to complete that loop around the point. The Public Works Department has given a cost of $25,000 for completing the sidewalk on the west side of North Park. And I would like to fund the cost of that $25,000 for the completion only of the west side of North Park for its sidewalk with ARPA funds. And I truly think that the completion of this loop will bring a little bit of a sense of completion to this project that we started and really, in a lot of ways, stuck our necks out for to make this incredible improvement for the community. And I'd like to make that motion.
Here's a motion by Alderman Lang, seconded by Alderman Borchert. Comments or discussion? Alderman Skirms.
Two questions. One, is the 14 still in the budget, or was that taken out, Director Eastman?
14 was removed by the mayor.
Okay, all right, thank you. And second question, for this amount of money, I guess I'd question why we're using ARPA for this and not borrowing. That's all.
That's I guess I would ask the same question. Every pedestrian route up till today at the parking lot, or the path, I'm sorry, we have used general purpose borrowing. If we're going to do this with no notice to the homeowners that are going to be impacted either, I do worry a little bit about that. Those homeowners on the west side would have had no notice
I don't think we could do.
potential project. But more importantly, if we're going to do this, why don't we just use general purpose revenue?
Right.
Like we do every other pedestrian. Alderman,
I think my thought on this was use of the ARPA funds would be appropriate for this because it fits well with sort of that effects of COVID and how we were supposed to be using the funds to, in essence, be able to provide amenities and do things and projects in the community that address some of those needs of people in, coming healthy, using the outdoors. It provides an amenity for the community that I felt like the ARPA fund, this was an appropriate use of them. If somebody else has a different viewpoint on that, I don't have a problem with that, I guess, but I just thought it was a appropriate use of the ARPA funds.
thank you for the explanation. So Jerry, before we do these projects, are the neighbors in any way, before we do any projects in general like this, do they know a year ahead of time that this may be done or not? How do we, postcards, or is it always after it's in the budget?
Normally, it's after it's in the budget.
Okay.
Since the spring CIP only included the sidewalk on the east side.
So if someone looked at
Residents on the west
the,
side wouldn't have been notified. of
someone looked
anything.
at the 5-year plan, they would have saw a sidewalk on the east side, and they wouldn't have had any indication that there was going to be sidewalk on the west side, but,
No, other than the original request was for
Okay.
sidewalk on both sides.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? So when this is in, I guess my last question would be, the homeowners that are going to be impacted, I'm the guy who, lived through Lakeshore Drive. these homeowners, this will, once this passes the budget, is it in, or does this have to come back up when the project is let and everything? There's other steps, correct?
Yeah, this would be included as part of a contract that would have to be approved
So
by
at
the
that
council.
time, the council, if the neighborhood came in and said, we don't want this, or we do want this, the council could react, like they've done in the past.
The residents can always react, and the council can react to the resident.
Okay. So they do get their kick at the cat, so to speak. Okay,
Certainly.
that's fair. Alderman Roots?
I have a question for Director Easker. Would you prefer that these be ARPA funds or general fund? What do you
boy.
think?
Can't wait to hear this.
I will, wow. I'm agnostic. How about that? Yeah, there's I don't mean to be flippant about it. Borrowing 15,712,000 or 15,737,000. The scale of that we're borrowing already probably, to me, might lend itself to borrowing simply because the ARPA funds have a broader purpose that seem to have a little bit more flexibility. But I understand the point of Alderman Lang, of this is related to people being outdoors and all that, so I can see it both. That's my non-answer.
Okay.
Agnostic.
Anyone else? All right. Alderman Lang's motion is to increase public infrastructure on North Park Avenue pedestrian road project by $25,000, and these costs will be funded by the ARPA funds.
Yeah, Mayor,
Alderman Stevenson?
I guess for the elder person is representing that district, and I gotta believe that are we gonna get like really, my guess is we're gonna get some pretty good feedback from the west side people.
Mixed.
Mixed.
Yep.
Are we mixed on the east side as well? I mean, I prefer, all things being equal, I prefer to see it on the west side so the pedestrians don't have to cross the street, right?
Agreed.
But
There's about 4 houses on the one side, and one of the larger houses is for this. So, I mean, the larger being amount of their usage footage-wise. So, I mean, I guess that's a big, huge win on that aspect. If we were to go to the other side and do it, I think there would be a lot more pushback.
Jerry, I drove out there. There's one house in particular that there is a fence or a wall or something. Is that in the easement, or will that be impacted that they'll have to take it out or not?
Yeah, that northerly property has a fence that's currently in the right-of-way. As I've mentioned in the past, though, we have a substantial amount of room between that house and the roadway that we don't need to put the sidewalk at the right-of-way line. We've got room where we can put a fairly standard terrace in, and that sidewalk will be well away from the house.
Okay.
And also, we are currently in conversations with that property and their attorney about acquiring the parkland north, that technically isn't parkland, but that they've commandeered as their property. So we're in talks with them anyways, and the fence has come up about that. So we're already in talks with them about the potential sidewalk over there.
Okay. If we get that property, we could do a pedestrian bridge. Okay, Alderman Lang, you ready? All in favor of the motion will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. Clerk opens the roll, please. That motion passes 8-1. Number 11, Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to do 2 things. The first is I would like to decrease the public infrastructure for Brooks Avenue sidewalk project by $24,000 and decrease capital borrowing by the same amount. And then I would like to increase capital equipment for the police for $16,500 for flock camera, safety cameras, and increase the capital borrowing by the same amount. The net effect is $24,000 capital facilities expenditure decrease. There's a $16,500 capital equipment expenditure increase and $7,500 use of borrowing revenue decrease. The reason I would like to do this is I do not believe we need the sidewalks on Brooks Avenue for the dog park. I've driven by there several times. The park is being utilized without the sidewalks. I don't think that they are necessary for walking to the park, and most of the people that I've noticed at the park drive to the park, get out of the car, take their dogs there, and they run around and they go home. It's not, they're not necessarily used by neighbors that would walk their dog to that park. We are over budget on that park to start with, and I don't think we need to spend that additional dollar there. I do think we do need the flock safety system. I sent out an information sheet on the other cities in the state of Wisconsin that are utilizing it. I think it's very important to, since we are on the Interstate 41 corridor, that we have this system. When you look at other cities like Milwaukee, Green Bay, Fond du Lac, and that Interstate 41 corridor, I think it's really important to be able to track people, criminals leaving city, and being able to locate them faster. So I think that's a really important use of this money. So I'd like to make that motion.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Lang. Thank you. Okay. Alderman Boyette?
I like this whole package. I just have questions on the safety camera. Because I thought we had it in, and I could be wrong, but I thought we had it in James's budget. He was going to do the traffic cameras and that the police was going to utilize them. So is this part of that? Is this separate from that?
I'll
or
invite Chief Olson and
somebody can enlighten me.
Director.
Are these the same? Are they different? Are they gonna be like? How, are we doing both? Or
There's something in Director Wenninger's future budget. Go ahead.
So that's called the Smart Cities Initiative. Joe can talk about that more. This is a different kind of camera that's going to be more just for police, where the police departments will be able to communicate with each other on crimes, and this will be able to alert just through license plates. Let's say Milwaukee has a shooting, they're coming through Neenah, it will alert us right away, as opposed to having a video camera that you can kind of pull up later for a crash or whatever it is. So this is
so this is like a plate reader.
it's a plate, right, it's a license plate reader. But the good thing about it, besides it being inexpensive, is we're not storing the data, because that's where all the money goes. Just like our body cameras are cheap, it's the data.
Right, right.
So this is a new program that is just taking the nation by storm. Wisconsin, it just came to Wisconsin, and police departments are just, it's just great program. I'm upset it's not called Olson cameras. It's a great program.
And so is it beneficial then? I mean, other than, will this do like silver alerts and amber alerts and those other alerts as well? You're looking for the license plate?
Anything that's entered by any police department, it will alert us for whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's a shooting, silver alert, doesn't matter. As long as the police department that owns these enters that camera, the license plate, it will appear on
It'll
our
come up.
computers. So if a car's going through from an incident from any agency, it'll alert our MDCs, and we'll know where that car is at.
Who issues Amber Alert?
Amber Alerts is the, I just, my.
Is that the law enforcement agency, or is that the DOT, or is that?
DOT.
Well, we initiate them.
I was gonna say, doesn't it, it has to come from a reporting officer.
We initiate it through the time system.
If police initiate Amber Alerts, you could utilize this system for missing children, things like,
Anything with a license plate that we
anything with
enter.
license.
Alls we
Okay.
need is a license plate. It also identifies, it doesn't do any facial recognition, it's just license plates.
And those alert systems utilize license plates, because I know, like, on television, when we see that alert go up, they'll give a description of the vehicle, possibly a description of the individual, but it'll give license plate.
Right, yep, anything with license plate.
Thank you.
Alderman Borchert.
The question is actually for Director Kading. So I just, when we initiated the sidewalk work, is this also included the entrance, the cement work? No, okay. Thank you.
So, did Joe need to talk then?
Joe, do you have anything to add? So basically, it's two different camera systems.
It's two different camera systems. Matt was actually doing some work on this, and I don't know if he touched base with you, Aaron, but actually they use what they call vehicle fingerprint technology, and there's a good chance you'll be able to determine a car goes through the intersection even if it doesn't have a plate on, just by make and model, emblem on the front, color. So it's a lot more than just license plates, but it is totally different technology. And you were correct. 2 years ago when we came for Smart Cities dollars, we were looking at the fixed cameras because something like this wasn't around.
And so did we ever do that?
We have not done that yet. We've got our first Smart City stuff starting with James's loop of traffic signals.
Yeah.
That he's doing actually out of his budget, but that was part of the fiber infrastructure downtown that's allowing us to do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Bates, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So we don't keep it for any time at all? I mean, if we find out someone had a, I mean, how fast can you type in a license plate if someone has just, shot somebody and driven out of town? I mean, you want to make sure you can catch them as soon as you can, but.
Yeah, I mean, it may not be immediate as far as the entry, but it's going to be pretty quick. I mean, as soon as we have the information, it will go into the flock system. So.
You could
it
do that
may
from the
not
car?
Excuse me?
You could do that from your car then?
As far as I know, it is from the car, yes. It's almost like an app. So it may not benefit us within the first 5 minutes, but if there's a shooting in Neenah and we get it in and all of a sudden it goes through, Oshkosh or Fond du Lac, then, the last several shootings we've had, if we would have had that entered within a few minutes, we would have had them in Oshkosh or Fond du Lac and most likely stopped by the time they got before they got to the Milwaukee area.
All right, thank you.
So one of the things, Chief, the legislature is dealing with privacy and protecting people's, police wouldn't be able to mine these cameras. They would have to have a specific purpose.
Right.
You couldn't just do traffic patterns, anything like that, or who's going, you know what I'm getting at? I mean, people are very sensitive about police having this ability to track vehicles. And how this would work is, so if there's a shooting in Milwaukee, they think they're coming up this way, whatever, they put this on the system, and then once it's on the system, if that vehicle passed any of those cameras within our jurisdiction, we would be alerted.
Right. It gives it, just like kind of like our license plate reader now in our car. If we pass a car and it's stolen, it beeps in the computer in the squad car, and the officer looks down and red letter stolen car, and they can see it right away. This is the same concept, that any car that was entered by an agency that goes through those intersections alerts the officer and the MDC right away, so they know.
Only after the information has been entered into the system. So if that car, will it tell you that car went through your system 20 minutes ago?
Well, there'll be a record of it, just like any other record,
Okay.
where let's say all of our officers are busy, and it went through, but we can't respond. But at least now the investigators from that agency can track where that car went.
Or if it wasn't entered yet. If it wasn't entered yet, then when it is entered,
It'll be able to say that it went
it'll
through that.
be able to say that it was
Yes.
on the corner of Main and Green Bay Road at
Right.
8:40 a.m.
Mhm.
Okay. So what do we get for our, and I read it, but $16,000, it just seems to me, like, my cameras at my business establishment are $900 a piece.
Well,
my God.
this reads license plates and emblems at 100 miles an hour in daytime and night, and we're not paying for the storage.
So we're getting the cameras are included, and when the pole gets knocked down by a semi, who pays for it?
They pay for it. We only pay for the installation, which is I think it was $248. So we pay for the reinstallation of it.
But if a semi takes down that pole,
They pay for the camera.
okay. I think those are things we could know because it happens a lot. And sometimes we find the driver, but many times we don't. So, anyone else? Alderman Boyette and then Stevenson.
So it's only going to read the plate number?
The plate number and anything that, it will give us any marks on the vehicle. Let's say it's got a bumper sticker of whatever it is. It's like Joe said, it's like a fingerprint.
So-
it'll be but nothing with faces.
So it won't give us the semi truck that took out the light pole with the camera on it?
No,
That's Joe's camera.
no.
Those-
No, because we wouldn't be able to search that. We'd have to have a license plate entered from it. So it's a different concept.
And so those entries then, those are statewide entries. So the amber alerts and the silver alerts and things like that, those are entered statewide. And then if they happen to come through our neighborhood, then it flags you. It wouldn't be like Milwaukee's thinking it comes our way, so they put everything north or whatever.
No,
It's
it's-
just because it's a statewide alert.
As long as it's in the FLAC system, we receive it, but it has to be entered by a FLAC system, a police department who has the FLAC system. So if, eventually, I mean, this company is gonna be statewide, so it'll be more effective as we go. But if there's an incident in La Crosse and they don't have the FLAC system, we won't have that license plate yet, because it has to be entered by, let's say, La Crosse PD for us to know about it.
Before calling Alderman Stevenson, this is fairly new technology. This is one company, and
It's not new, it's new to Wisconsin.
Okay.
They're moving from Texas.
and
this
will you
direction.
enter into a multi-year contract? Because what's to keep them from, once they start getting all these departments and that, they kind of got you almost, and then they can increase the yearly pricing.
Yeah, I can't answer that one. I don't
I'd be somewhat concerned about that. Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That kind of dovetails my concern here. It sounds like a great product, but I'm a little concerned about our process of how we got it here, because it wasn't included in capital budget request for the mayor to even consider putting in or taking out. And my guess is you initiated the due diligence process, it looks like on September 20th, when you met with the people who are selling the product. Is that our first meeting with them?
So the first meeting was September with IS. We met with them, had no plan on putting this in the 22 budget. We were gonna do a
Well, the
T&E.
22 budget was already been submitted, right?
So we were gonna do a T&E in January of 22, and then go from there, and then put it in the operation plan for 23. But we had a conversation, Alderman Erickson and I, she said, hey, is there anything else that would help you since, crime is going up and we don't have as many people? I said, we met with Flock System. This seems like a great system. Other police departments are going with it, and it's been very successful so far, and that would be a great product to have. So it was planned to go to 2023
Right.
with the T&E. So it wasn't because we didn't put it in,
With TNA, what was that?
the T&E,
Yeah, TNE.
testing and analysis.
Okay, yeah, right, good. So, I mean, Alderperson Erickson reached out to you, asked if there was, what else could we get you? You had just had, it sounds like maybe within a month, had a meeting with these people. I'm assuming she asked you to write a memo, because.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so she asked you to write a memo. You sent the memo only to her. The rest of the council probably should have been copied on that. If this
No,
was.
I did send it out.
Oh, you did? When did we first see this? Okay, well, not in September, but November 11th, the memo was written, right? Okay, All right.
This just,
So-
this,
so
the
my-
conversation just
yeah,
happened last
my
week, so.
concern is when department heads have capital projects, now they have a certain due diligence that they need to do to make sure they got all their ducks in a row and that product works and it's well thought out and the testing and the, equipment, all the testing is done. We're seeming to react here to perceived need without you having done what you even said you needed to do before you would bring it to the council for action, but rather reacting to a very concerned alderman who wants to do the best she can do for the police department. I'm concerned that we may be moving a little bit too fast with that, given we're not quite sure how this product is going to interface with the Smart Cities Initiative. The question was asked, and Joe's got money in there to do that, so are these going to compete with each other? Are they going to work together? Or are we going to just allocate the dollars and then figure it out? Kind of like they did with the fire department radios.
This is, that has nothing to do with the police. That's,
I know.
has nothing to do
I'm
with
just,
the police. But,
I'm just
but-
trying to give a bad
but,
example.
This is just a completely different concept from Smart Initiative cameras. It's completely different. It's going to help us tremendously. It's proven at all the other police departments that have this, from the West Coast all the way through Georgia and up, and it's just getting here now because of the rep. They just put the rep in Minnesota, who has Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And it's just one of those programs where, it just works so well. And, Wichita PD had over $1 million worth of cars recovered last year just because of Flex system.
So
Not saying we're gonna have $1 million worth of cars stolen, but that's just how good of a program it is.
yeah, well, based on what we know so far, but you've self-admitted you haven't done any testing or evaluations.
Well,
Like you said you were going to do in 2022.
100 absolutely, but we were doing that because this came so late in the year that we didn't have time to do it, so we were gonna not put it in the 22 budget because it was too late, so work on it during 22 for 23, but that was just because of timing. But this has so much success at all these other police departments, from California to Texas to Georgia and everywhere in between, that the T&E was something for us to do in the meantime until we got to the next budget. If that makes sense.
Todd, and the Smart Cities, actually, Matt and I met with Captain Van Sambeek, Investigator Paige Collins, and Chief about a week and a half ago, and we went through all the scenarios of where we were going to place the cameras that are included in the Smart Cities initiative, and we determined that the Fox system would go in the places that those cameras would be. But we also discussed there's some of our city parks that unfortunately keep getting vandalized, and we determined we're going to be coming back with a package for cameras for those parks through the Smart Cities, which I'll probably be at a finance committee meeting right after the first of the year or so for that. So we talked through all of it. I unfortunately was not at the demo. I was out of state at the time, but Matt is real high in this company.
Well, just let me challenge that. If the chief is correct in what he said about how great the system is, why wouldn't we abandon Smart Cities and utilize this product for?
There are two different applications. Your Smart City cameras are going to record 24/7, and we're going to store video here. This system, when you're looking for somebody, it's going to be able to pop up kind of like a snapshot when you go through, when a vehicle goes through the intersection. It's not going to do a 24/7 recording video as the Smart City cameras. They're two different technologies.
Two different uses.
Two different uses, two different technologies.
So is it possible?
The Smart Cities would never give them the ability to key anything in there to say, hey, when this comes through, go ahead and flag us.
So is it possible we could have Smart City camera and a Fox camera on the same corner?
It would be conceivable. I don't think it's going to happen. After we had our discussion last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't see it happening. If we would have a lot of accidents on a corner, that we want a Smart Cities camera there for that, that might be an option. But the reason we're going to put Smart City cameras there is the police had requested them on the 5 exits, entrances to the city, just to go ahead and be able to track vehicles leaving that were utilized to commit a crime. So that's the purpose these flock cameras are going to do. They're just going to do the job better with quicker notification for us.
And also, ever from Green Bay to Milwaukee, all of the police departments in Green Bay, the Fox Valley, and Milwaukee, we're all dealing with the same people. So if somebody robs a gas station in Milwaukee, they're gonna come here in Green Bay for potentially. We're all dealing with the same people. So this flock system, Green Bay PD is putting in their 29 cameras, whatever it is. Milwaukee's putting in 100 some, Milwaukee Sheriff's Department's putting in several, and then all the suburbs, and then everyone in between. So because we're all dealing with the same people, this is gonna give us quicker access to that criminal who just robbed the store in Milwaukee, and they're gonna come up here, because that's what they do. They don't just, rob one store, they rob several in different communities, and that's what we're seeing. We're all tracking the same criminals. They're all doing the 3 areas between Green Bay, Fox Valley, and Milwaukee. So that's why we want the Fox camera, because we will all be in the same system.
Okay. Alderman Bates?
Couple questions. How many cameras are we talking about?
We want to start out with 5.
Got it. Do we know about how long these cameras last?
Well, I can't remember if they talked about
Yeah, I don't think they mentioned that, but again, it's a one-time charge. We pay $240, $250 for them to be installed. Then it's an annual $2,500 per camera. My understanding is any kind of maintenance in that or replacement in that time period is going to be handled by Flock as long as we have $2,500.
So it's $2,500 per camera per year?
Correct.
Okay.
And the big thing is, as the chief had said, is the storage. Right now with the storage system we've got for the city here, we're looking at 75% of it is video we have to store for open records for a minimum of 180 days. Some of it's more than that. So with that all pushing to the cloud, in my opinion, that makes it well worth the $2,500.
I just want to add that after our last meeting with the police at our Public Service and Safety Committee, it was disturbing how much you said comes up through us because we're on Highway 41, and if we can do something to prevent, the second offense of someone, it would be helpful. So thank you.
Alderman Erickson.
Yes, I have 2 questions. The first is, do we have to take up the deletion of the Brooks Avenue sidewalks first and then do this? Is that, should there be 2
Well, you
motions?
have them together, one motion.
So, okay, they can be together as one motion?
Well,
And then the other comment that I'd like to make is that we spent $18,649 for an exterior sign on the City Hall, which does not prevent one bit of crime. And this is less than that. And so I can't understand why someone would not support this, because it would help keep our city safe.
Okay, Alderman Boyette, one more time.
Who manages the city, the smart city cameras that are gonna go in unison with, because I'm assuming, Chief, you're gonna manage your cameras, and the smart city ones are gonna be done by.
Yeah, the smart city cameras actually are going to add to, we've got about 80 to 95 cameras in parks and throughout the city right now. That's all managed by my staff. That will continue to be the thing. As far as managing the flock, I believe that's part of the agreement for the $2,500 per camera, is they have to worry about the storage, you have to worry about the retention, they have to worry about the cameras functioning properly.
So if we do these packages with the smart cities, for, because it's my understanding we're still doing that for PD, right, at the exits of the city, an exit,
At this time, I don't believe we're going to.
or not?
Unless there would be a need, if we might have a high accident volume someplace, we might want to put some up, but I don't, I see this replacing that.
Okay, and then, but these are only license plate readers, right? These aren't like eyes on car, it's just the plate, right?
Well, it's a plate. It identify any type, any information you put in about a vehicle.
You can also put in a 2002 Toyota, and it'll
Yeah,
bring
and
up, it'll tag all the Toyotas, I imagine, right?
Yeah, it'll tag the Toyotas by that color.
But
Say
it
if
won't,
it's a-
but it won't,
Right.
okay, so, but I guess to my question is, it won't tag the driver. Like, you can get the car all you want, but you're looking for a certain suspect, and you're not gonna get that with your flock camera, whereas you would have with the smart city camera.
My guess is that at the rate of travel through the intersection with a smart city's camera on there and tinted windows, you're never going to see facial recognition in those.
Let them know where they are.
And so then, you had also mentioned that potentially, a package for like the parks, and so, like vandalism, that sort of thing. So who manages those after hours?
Yeah, we manage them.
So you just wait until the next morning and come in and check the footage, and maybe you catch to see who was on the camera doing the act, and you're not gonna catch them per se, like in the act.
Most of the time, cameras are reactive. They're not proactive. We can, if we see a lot of vandalism at some specific location, we can feed that to the front desk at PD, and if
Oh,
you know, they see it, that's good. But they do have a monitoring system, or several monitors that we can lock different cameras in.
okay. Well, I didn't know, so that's why I was asking, because to me, I'm thinking it's going into the cameras and somebody's going to sit there and hit the fast forward button in the morning and watch the,
Unfortunately, how it usually happens is we notice the vandalism, we go back and we look in the time frame, and we're able to determine who.
I understand you want to know the difference, but Joe's cameras aren't on the agenda, are not out there tonight. It's the flock camera.
I
But
understand.
there is some correlation because you
Well,
want to
there is
know, but.
because we allocated funds for the smart city cameras, and now we're allocating funds potentially for these flat cameras that are replacing the smart city cameras, and so, yeah, kind of it is.
Yeah, I get it. The flock cameras, as I understand it, are for identifying vehicles that are put in the system. That's their only use. They're not for, the other cameras are going to be to reconstruct accident scenes, look for vehicles after the fact, things like that. So that's pretty much how it is. And Alderman Stevenson.
Yeah, so, Chief, you said you were buying 5, and I think Tammy shared with me that her request is for 6. So, what is it, 6 or 5?
Maybe I just said the wrong number.
So it's,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, it is 6, I'm sorry.
okay, so we're buying 6 cameras, and the cost is 20, so they're gonna cost $16,500 this year in startup costs. Then we're gonna have $15,000 a year ongoing, year after year. Whose budget absorbs that, and what line item?
That would have to be added to our technology line item for the following years.
Technology line item, which one?
But I don't know the line number off the top of
Well,
my head. Jeff, do you have the, hold up, what one that would be?
I just want to see what $15,000 is going to do to that line item. Is it going to triple it, or is it only a minuscule part of your budget? It's an ongoing expense. So quite honestly, Alderperson Erickson's comparison to a camera outside, which is a one-time cost, and the
It's
only
not a
ongoing.
camera.
I know. Well, you brought it up. I did.
It's a sign, it's not a
You asked me.
camera.
You asked me to compare it to this purchase, so I'm doing. It's a one-time
Well,
cost.
don't call it a camera then.
It's a one-time sign, but this has $16,500, $15,000 a year, and it's ongoing year after year, and it didn't go through the budget process review. That's why I have a heartache with this. I fully support the technology, but having it come in with, kind of like, well, what else can we do? And then they're going to have a memo sent to you, and the council's going to sit and, because this wasn't compared to other projects, it was brought in after the fact. I love the concept, I love the passion, but it avoided the process, it avoided the budget, and the chief even admitted he was doing his due diligence to bring it to us next year. So you don't have to answer that question. It's going to be $15,000 ongoing, year after year after year. We need to understand how we're going to plan for that, where we're going to have to adjust this, because it affects expenditure restraint. And so I'm going to vote against this year, but probably would vote wholeheartedly for it next year.
All right, anyone else? Yes, I would, Alderman Lane.
I'd just like to say, I think this is, because of the timing of it, we weren't maybe aware as soon as we should have been, but this is the time to move on this. It's new technology. It could be very useful to us, and I'm strongly in support of it.
Anyone else? Alderman Erickson, you have these two amendments together,
Correct.
and I don't know if they're not tied in any way other than one's public infrastructure, one's increased capital. I don't understand the tie here. There doesn't seem to be any tie other than.
That it would save the budget money by taking out the
Okay,
dollars for the sidewalk project that is not needed, and we would actually be saving $7,500 this year, which could be put toward the $15,000 next year.
I understand that. So I was just going to ask that, why or if you would just have two motions, because quite frankly, the fact that this came late to the game, I've said at my beginning, if there's ways to improve it, I would consider it. So, but I don't think one should be done at the expense of the other. It would be simply adding $16,000 to our general borrowing, and on a borrowing
I
of 15
personally, even if I didn't
I
have.
have the floor.
Okay.
On a borrowing of 15 point some million dollars, if it's 15.71 and versus 15.715, so I'm just asking the question because I do believe, and I've heard this council talk a lot about safety and getting people. There's going to be a lot of people, and I'm with you because I also went to the dog park. There's going to be a lot of people walking Brooks Avenue, and there's semis and that. So you're hearing the mayor say, I support a sidewalk. It's somewhat unusual. But we can do both if that's, I'm supportive of both. That's the intent. But if you want to try and save money and make it appear that, we're not spending a lot of money to do this, I understand that. So, I'm sorry, do you have a comment?
I wouldn't be in support of the sidewalks on Brooks Avenue, so I would take that out, even if we didn't, even if this passed on its own. I'm just not supportive of putting it there. I think the dog park is over budget, and I don't support it.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Alderman Bates, go ahead.
Not to say that I don't usually support sidewalks, but this is a case where it's a strip of sidewalk. It's not connected to
To
the other
anything.
sidewalks on Marathon. And that would be the thing, is if you're going to connect it, people are going to walk down Marathon, then over there. But that's,
Boy, these
so
are-
in case you're wondering how I'm voting against a sidewalk, I'm sorry.
Marge is against a sidewalk.
So the mayor's supporting a sidewalk and Marge is not.
Time to hang it up.
7 years in the making, Marge, sorry. I got it, okay. We're gonna vote.
No.
Would you like to say one more thing? Or what?
Yeah, I just want to tell Tammy that I think what the mayor was trying to say is that you might get better odds if you did make them two separate motions. That's all.
I'm going to keep them as is.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Seeing no one else, there's a motion by Alderman Erickson. Decrease public infrastructure Brooks Avenue sidewalk project by $24,000 and decrease capital borrowing by the same. Increase capital equipment police budget by $16,500 for flock safety cameras and increase capital borrowing by the same amount. And the net effect is $24,000 up in one budget, capital facilities, and $16,000 increase in capital equipment expenditure increases. And there's a $7,500 use of borrowing revenue decrease. All in favor will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. Clerk opens the roll. That motion passes 8-1. Okay? Item number 12 of Alderman Skirms.
The next several pertain to my conservative perspective on the world. I went through the budget looking for ways that we can reduce our borrowing. That doesn't necessarily say these aren't worthy projects. So it's either, what I went looking for is delete, reduce, or defer. So that's what the next following things are. Regarding the parking design amount, the department originally asked for $100,000 and it was increased to $400,000. I move that we put it back to $100,000.
Okay? Is that a motion?
Get it?
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Boyette seconds it. Any discussion? The reason I put the money then that I did, it's just not, I think if you read the narrative, I believe it's also for other issues related to the parking structure. And we don't know what the design is going to cost, but in order to get this thing rolling, we got to spend the money on the designs. Alderman Lang?
I wondered if Development Director Hayes has any insight or input on this.
I'm not exactly clear of the mayor's increase, but Alderman Skirms is correct. The initial design numbers were 100,000, but I'll tell you those are pretty, there was no research as to what that number was. I would like to think we could get it done for 100,000. I'm not sure. I'm not overly concerned because we have other parking dollars in the budget already, previously borrowed dollars. And I would have faith in the council that if it was over 100,000 to do design, if we actually got to the point, we'd figure out a way to get it done. But there will likely be costs, there's a very good chance we could have costs for additional acquisitions. Again, there are some dollars already in the budget from previous borrowings that could be used. So I think we have a fair amount of capital to work with if necessary.
Alderman Boyette?
Thank you. I'm on page 308, and it says here, to move forward with design when location is firm. Is our location?
Yeah.
It's getting closer.
Not firm.
No, I mean, we have options. We have an option that if it does not solidify soon, it will be on to option B, in my opinion.
So, again, I'm going to refer to what's written here from the mayor's comments and what's in our book. Move forward with design when location is firm. And your answer to that was not firm.
Yeah, in hearing that, my answer would be we will have a firm option in 2022.
Late 2022? Early 2022?
Yes.
Thanks.
Preferably earlier than later. Obviously, we've
Oh,
been
yeah,
working
right.
on it long enough, but.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just,
So preference would be earlier. We are much closer today than we were 6 months ago, or even 3 months ago.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Bates?
Question for Mike Easker. If we had something that firmed up real quickly, is this an opportunity for a secondary borrowing in the city?
We have not discussed that, as a group with committee, but we definitely are looking at, in the event that the stars line up on this project, we will very likely, with Baird, recommend a borrowing similar to what we did with the first ramp, which was lease revenue bonds, which is a completely separate borrowing, completely different from what we're borrowing for everything else tonight. So that's why that option, there's no economies of scale to try to crowd this in with current borrowing because it would be a different type of borrowing. It provides a longer, the ability to have a longer maturity. It does not go against our 5% limit statewide, and it is a vehicle, a tool that the council used when we did the first ramp. So I think we may at least recommend following that structure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I would just ask that stay at the $400,000 level. I believe, I don't think that those costs are anywhere near what it's going to be to get this thing off the ground. And this will provide the necessary dollars for acquisition. Still have numerous properties that we want to get in that area. And, I understand Alderman Skirm's intention here, but you're gonna borrow it now or you're gonna borrow it later. And I think having the dollars on hand will get the ball rolling sooner when we can firm up location. Very close. All right? Oh boy, I just said anything. Alderman Skirms.
That's fine, just quickly. The line item or the description is for design and engineering. It doesn't say anything about acquisition.
If the money's there, council would be able to move it around. If the money's not there, got to figure out another way to pay for it. Alderman Boyette?
Yes, I'd like Director Easker to confirm what he just said for that later option for the borrowing.
Yes.
So is that just for the structure or is that for the design?
Well, again, once there is a project and once that project is defined well enough, it would be for as much of the project as we can, as we know at that time. But as with the first ramp and everything else, there's always pre-costs that need to be, leading up to that. We don't want to wait necessarily to borrow all of it when, in fact, as the Mayor has said and Director Hayes has said, we've borrowed money for parking. If there's acquisition, if there's design, normally those are costs leading up to the big cost. The big cost, and as much as we can plow into that borrowing, we would, but that does not preclude us from needing money ahead of time to lead up to that. I guess that's my answer.
So now I'm really confused. Can you just answer me a yes or no?
How I would address that would be to say we would not do, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, a separate borrowing for design.
Right.
Because the number is way too small. If you somehow had a degree of confidence in the cost of what this thing was going to cost without a design, you could potentially roll them together. And so I think Mike is correct.
Right.
You're going to have initial costs to establish enough of a framework that you're confident that you're going to be borrowing sufficient funds for the construction. So that's why the dollars are in a capital budget as opposed to a separate borrowing for the construction of the ramp. Does that make sense?
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Hillstrom?
Thank you, Mayor. Are we planning on borrowing this over 2 years, too? I thought I had.
Again, my recommendation has been there's no point to borrowing money and paying interest on money that you have no intention on spending for at least, 12 months, 18 months. So that's why we've really been sort of picking and choosing, trying to find some monies to put in so that we have monies available if there is an acquisition, if there is some need for design, pre-design. But when the time comes that we have a site and we have a project and all that, my recommendation is do one large borrowing for everything, not split it up. Unless they believe it's going to take, 2.5 years to build or something, but because there's also a cost to borrowing. If you borrow twice, you've got a lot of costs that are associated with borrowing twice as opposed to once. So I'll just say this: we will do this in the most cost-effective and efficient manner possible.
Okay, I just thought I had remembered seeing it in
If I,
former CIP where it was 2 years. So
if I can address that,
Go ahead.
we had it, I think that's the way I had proposed it in the budget, in the original budget, assuming traditional borrowing. Given that I've been enlightened by Director Easker about this most likely be a lease revenue borrowing, in which case to his point, it makes more sense to do a single borrowing as a two. That's why it showed up that way, but I think we have since adjusted our thoughts on, we may pay for it over 2 years, but the borrowing should occur with one borrowing.
All right. Anyone else? There's a motion and a second. All in favor of Alderman Skirm's motion, decrease F10 parking structure design project by $400,000, decrease capital borrowing by the same amount, will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. The motion passes 5-4. Item number 13, Alderman Skirms.
I know we mentioned this before of seeking donations, but my dog and I have been to many a park without water, and I know there are examples in refer to Wapaka where there are some dog lovers, owners who are happy to donate to their projects. I would remove the water service project from the dog park at this time.
There's a motion by Alderman Skirms. Is there a second?
Sorry, Tammy. Second. I touched it faster.
Okay.
Going on.
You got the motion?
Well, John should have the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Oops.
there we go.
Back up. Turn those around. I didn't push my button. Sorry.
All right. Alderman Skirms, but there you go. Second by Alderman Erickson.
No.
Lundgren?
Lundgren.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. Not being a dog owner, I see an importance of having water around us. There's not a lot of shade there. If you're running around, I don't want to see people falling over. We have water in the parks. I was wondering, is there any connection between this and water for the community garden? Because that would be helpful as well. Because right now, I think we have to have trucks that go out there.
Tony, is this going to assist the community gardens in any way?
I do know that. Currently, the community garden receives water from the police station.
You mean like they hook up to it?
I believe that they carry it over, is that correct, or they have a hose? They have a large hose. The other thing is that the community gardens had asked me in the past about getting a water service over there, and I gave them a quote at the time, and that was far and away outside their budget for that, and I think it was beyond what they could raise for funds, so they're going to keep it doing what they're doing. With regards to water for the dog park, we did, I believe, provide an estimate for Director Kading for that service, and that's something that they would have to fund themselves.
Do we have water at the skateboard ramp or skateboard park? Is there a water fountain there? There is one.
Is there one?
Okay.
I'm looking at the police chief because I'm not sure. I don't hang out at the skate park all that often.
Thank you. There is one, or?
A water fountain that's connected to a police permit?
Do they still have soda machines out there? Do they still have soda machines out there? I thought they did at one time.
We don't even have soda in the police department. That was banned.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
So Director Mock, would getting water to the dog park assist the community gardens getting?
That's a good question. I think that it's far enough away where it probably would not necessarily assist them. I don't think it would necessarily be worth it per se for the community gardens.
Dogs have to have. Alderman Hills.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have a couple questions for Director Keating. Back up again, Mike.
Chief, you want to answer Kading's questions?
We were going to switch departments and answer each other's questions before, so that might
Mike,
have been more fun.
the water going in, would that, I mean, there is going to be concrete work done there, right? So would the water going in go underneath that concrete work? So that would be good to put in now? And then the other question is, I know you were talking to somebody who was talking about donating the fountain for the water, so that would be another reason for putting it in.
Correct. The $21,200 proposed here is to hook up to the current water line in Brooks, bring it into the property. I would recommend that we situate it outside any of the future concrete unless it's going under some future sidewalk on Brooks, but not next year. But we'd bring that into the site, and yes, the water fountain in and of itself would serve both dogs and people. Currently, there is a potential donation for that. These dollars are just for the hook 'em ups. This is not for the actual structure coming out of the ground being a water fountain.
But we are talking to somebody that would donate.
That is correct.
It would be for people and dogs.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mike, don't go away. Does this water bill come out of your budget too?
Tony loves the park and rec department, so yes.
Just saying, you guys are really good business.
Well, we keep it in the family.
Yeah. Oh, did you hear that?
No.
He wants a splash pad for the dogs now.
No splash. Trust me, people have reached out about having dog cleaning places. No.
Oh, yeah. No. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Alderman Lundrum.
Really quick. No dog or person is going to die of thirst out there. You have now little portable dog bowls. You clip them onto your belt. I don't know anyone who doesn't walk around without a water bottle. We don't need this. I have dogs.
Anyone else? I would just say, there is a Friends of the Dog Park that is going to start attempting to raise some money. I think they have an online auction coming up. But those are for benches and pavilions, things like that. I think the city's responsible for infrastructure. This is infrastructure. If you're going to have a quality dog park, if you're going to have an amenity, don't do it halfway. Make it nice. Make it a quality dog park. And we made the decision years ago to have a dog park. It was the #1 asked for item in the Park and Rec budget or surveys for years. So it's $21,000 to put water to it. I apologize if the fence came in over what we thought it was going to be. I don't know what to tell you, but stop bringing that up and, that we went over budget because of the fence. I don't know. I didn't know what the fence was going to cost. I was using the best information that was given to me, but if you're going to do these amenities, we do them good. We do them right. So dog park should have water. Everyone I've went to, I think, has water. Anyone else? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. That motion fails 7-2. Okay, who's next? Alderman Skirms.
Sorry. Item number 14 pertains to the park activity building, and I think this is a timing issue. It is for me. I have concerns about, we haven't figured out, as far as I know, what's going to happen on the Minergy footprint. And I'm concerned about, we have all kinds of capital things going on in Arrowhead that I'm not sure we've thought through how each of these may impact what we're going to do on the Minergy site. That may be unwarranted, but that's a concern of mine. I would like to know what that vision is or where we are on that. So I would move to defer this item also.
Right, there's a motion by Alderman Skirms to decrease public facilities Arrowhead Park activity building project by $180,000, which decreases the decreased capital borrowing by the same amount, $180,000 expenditure decrease, and the use of borrowing revenue decreased by $180,000. Is there a second? Hearing no second, that motion dies for lack of a second. Alderman Skirms.
As requested by Neenah PD, I move to increase the capital equipment budget for police, putting back in two additional speed signs that they requested at a price of $10,000.
Okay, press the button, sir. Thank you. Alderman Skirms moves to increase capital equipment police budget by $10,000 for portable speed signs, increase capital borrowing by same amount. The net effect is $10,000 capital equipment expenditure increase, $10,000 use of borrowing revenue increase. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Erickson seconds it. Discussion. Alderman Stevenson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief. We have some of these now, right? Couple at least?
Couple.
We have one that's, it's a very small one, and you put out there. Problem we have with that is people actually keep moving it. Because you can move, they're they're on a dolly. So they just don't work. We don't even really use it. We have one we bought off of Craigslist or something like that a few years ago, and it's just so old that it doesn't work very long. We've had it on Congress the last few days, and it actually worked for 3 days in a row, which I guess is the longest it's worked. So we do, but we need ones that actually are new and work and also collect the data we need. So rather than just put out strips, this will actually show how fast people are going. It's got a computer in it, and it'll give us all the data, the speeds and everything like that, so that if we have complaints, we can put it out there and, number one, reduce traffic, but then also see how fast people are going.
So the three that the department asked for 5, the mayor put in 3. This motion would take it back to 5. So regardless of how many we buy, my guess is if we get 3 or 5, we're gonna get rid of the old first 2.
Correct.
So regardless, we're increasing our total number by at least 1, from 2 to 3, and all 3 will work now.
Well, maybe I misunderstood what you said. The old ones we have now, just aren't going to use.
Correct. You get rid of those. You're getting 3
So
new
whatever
ones.
we purchase new, that'll be what we use.
Right, but if we purchase what the mayor put into his budget, that's 3 of them.
Mhm.
So we'll go from 2 that work kind of sometimes to 3 that theoretically will work full,
Correct.
based on what the mayor put in without having to do this amendment.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, I know Public Works has got their own set of signs that do the similar stuff with recording. Do we rent those signs?
Those are the big orange ones.
Right.
Yeah, you're referring to the changeable message boards, and actually we share those with the police department. They do have a capability for displaying speeds, but that's not really their primary function. Their main function is to make the public aware of certain traffic or other circumstances that they need to be aware of when they're on the road.
Now, when Engineer Merton has counts and things like that for, is that when he's borrowing it from the county or the state or something like that? When he did the counts at
Sure.
Lake Shore?
Counts, he has a couple of different ways. We do have pneumatic tubes that we use for counting traffic. But we've also worked through East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning with their MyoVision product that is a camera that they take counts from.
Is that similar to what he's looking at?
No, that would be completely different.
Because I could see that as being something in the future might benefit both departments, going with the lower number here and then going with the, adding some of those other ones that we always have to rent from, or not rent, but borrow from someone else.
Yeah, the MyoVision, the camera setup, that is strictly for counting traffic. That doesn't do anything else. That's not
I thought it did
recording the
speed.
data that we get with the pneumatic tubes.
Okay. And I
And-
understand.
Thank
And
you.
also, those are so large that they don't work as well for what we need, because what we need are a little bit smaller, they take up less room in the roadway. Those are very large, so they don't work in all the streets that we need them to go on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I hate to be Mr. No, but I will say this, Alderman Skirms, I appreciate you trying to help them with this problem, but as the person who usually asks for these to go out, really contact Deputy Chief, 5's going to be hard to manage. I mean, getting these things out, they got to find time to take these out on site. They got to, get someone to do that. They got to maintain them and all that. 3 is good, is probably plenty. I worry that if there's 5 out in the city at one time, people are going to start just disregarding them because they're going to be kind of an overload. They are a great public relations thing. Neighbors love them when you put them out. If you put them out in your neighborhood, the neighbors will thank you for putting them out. But I just thought we'd save a few bucks, and we're going to be just as effective, in my opinion, with 3 as we are with 5. And otherwise, someone's going to be having to be out all the time, moving these things around and that. And quite honestly, they're very good about doing it for me and that. But sometimes it's kind of like when we'll get to it. So I just think 3 will get the job done. It's nothing more than that. Alderman Skirms?
Didn't we just hire a dedicated traffic officer?
Pardon me?
It hasn't been approved.
Okay.
But it would be tonight when the budget passes, based on all the amendments so far.
Okay. My understanding was that was the number one problem, and if the PD asked for that, I was going to give them the tools they asked for. That's all.
That dedicated officer will be able to stop vehicles and give them a ticket or a warning. These signs kind of,
Don't do that.
There are kids on Winneconne Avenue who try to see if they can hit certain numbers. Fortunate, a real person's a lot better than these signs, in my opinion.
Right. And in full disclosure, the traffic officer will maintain these signs and get them where they need to go, because that person is going to be the one monitoring through our crime analyst of where the crime trends are and the complaints.
Yeah.
So one of their jobs is to put the signs in the right places. And one of the reasons why they don't work now is because they just don't work very well.
Yeah, I ain't gonna fall on the sword for this. I just think the reality probably is there'll be 3 out and 2 in the garage.
That we'll have a new traffic officer the next day if that happens, so that's just what's going to happen.
Alderman Boyette.
I'm just curious,
It's gonna be Adam.
aren't these the signs that there's basically like a waiting list because everybody wants one in their neighborhood?
We could have 100 out there, and
I'm
no one's
just
gonna be
I'm just
happy,
curious
so.
because I know like we've asked for different signage in our neighborhoods to reduce people's thoughts on the speeding, and it's like, oh, they're already here, or well, when we're done with it over here, and it's almost like there's a waiting list. So I'm just curious, is this the same equipment that we're all
Correct. Well, one reason there's a waiting list is obviously they don't work very often.
right?
Right, so Adam, our fleet manager, is always trying to fix them. So it's a long process, but our hope now is that these things will be out there for 3 days, day to charge out for 3 days, and obviously, you know, there'll always be 3 to 4 out there, but always they can only last about 3 days in the charge, and then back in unless we get the solar power ones, and we'll see, we have to figure out which ones are the best.
So this number won't get you the solar powered ones?
Potentially, just don't know, you know, how long do they still have to come in for a day to charge? I mean, does it charge, will they stay out there forever and they're good? I don't fully know yet.
All right, anybody else? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor of the motion by Alderman Skirms to increase capital equipment police by 10,000 for what amounts to 2 additional portable speed signs, will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. Clerk opens the roll. That motion passes 5-4. The next one, introduced Alderman Skirms.
Item 16, this came up during our budget discussions about our lead pipelines and the rate at which we're replacing them, and the inventory that we have. I was alarmed to find out the number of lines we still have. It's over 3,600 residential lines still. And I know Tony and the department's doing a good job replacing them as they can when they're there. But I think we need to accelerate this at this rate. This year, I think the budget is, what, 2015 for this year. Last year, we did quite a few more than that, closer to 100. But I think it's important we put dollars towards this to accelerate this. This is a potentially significant health risk that I think we need to address, and I think ARPA funds are appropriate for this. The way I would suggest using this money would to put in place a grant program to incentivize people to do this. For example, if you sign up and do the replace your lead pipe, the city will kick in $500 towards that, which is basically a third of the cost of typically what it costs. The other piece of this amendment will be would only come into play if we could not find alternate funding. There is potential money out there that could be coming our way to pick up a large part of this starting next year. So if that doesn't come through, I would recommend using $200,000 for that. If it comes through, then we wouldn't need to touch any of this. So I move to set aside $200,000 ARPA money for a lead pipe replacement grant program.
Motion by Alderman Skirms. Is there a second?
All right. Get out of here.
I'll second it
Dan?
only because I have some questions.
That's seconded by Alderman Boyette. Alderman Boyette, go ahead.
Director Easker, how does that work with setting aside a separate grant program for something like this? I'm guessing this is something on the same idea what the bid board does for signs and awnings and things like that, where they give X amount of money and when the money's gone, whatever. But so how would that work with this being the water department and?
Well, again, as Alderman Skirms is saying, I think the details of this would still need to be determined in terms of what sort of program. If it's a revolving loan, again, we do have a revolving loan home improvement. That's not part of the bid. The city has one internally. That
No. This.
Loan assist. I know this is, but if you're asking how would it be structured, in other words, how would we structure the loan program?
Well, this is. He said grant. He didn't say loan.
Well, again, I'm speaking about something that I know there's not even a sketched outline of what we'd be talking about. If it is a grant, if it is a similar to the housing loan, so I'm probably not able to. Until I see some detail to it, I wouldn't know what I would be analyzing, I guess, to be honest. So,
Yeah, because I'm just curious because the finances with the water department is separate from the
Right.
city, so I'm asking like,
Well, okay, so
'cause
a
you,
couple of
'cause
things.
ultimately you would be managing this.
In theory, our department manages the water department finances, so if there was a revolving loan program where we had to keep track of, you know, who owes money to the city, if it's not a grant program but a loan program, as I brought up, we already have a loan program in place for people to improve their homes. Carol Castlemore is a part of that. They analyze people in terms of income and all sorts of things. You know, sometimes those turn into a bureaucracy here that are difficult. So I don't have any comment on this. ARPA funds, you know, could be used for it. Do I think it's the best use of ARPA funds? My own personal opinion is it's not. So you were asking that.
Yesterday, Congress passed $15 billion infrastructure bill. $15 billion is allocated for lead pipe.
No, this is a
Yes.
DNR state
Well, yesterday,
EPA program.
yesterday, I read it today, and
Mm.
I just talked to the city attorney. $45 billion package, $15 billion is going to, it's passed. And Biden will sign it into law, President.
It's fine.
So I would just think that of that amount of money, it's going to be something for us. Yeah. And I heard your comments that something else came up, but I'm supportive of the revolving loan concept. I've been asking our water department, Tony knows this, I've asked for a long time, put $50,000 away per year, have a revolving loan fund, water department fund. Just haven't got there. So all I would ask is that I believe this bill that passed yesterday in Congress will take care of.
I hope you're right.
Alderman Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's, you know, dealing and getting ahead of the lead pipe issue is an important task. But I think just allocating $200,000 and then say, here's $200,000, we might use it, we might not. Now let's create a program and then ask the council to make a decision tonight on it without knowing the answers to Kathy's questions. Is a grant, does it have to be paid back? So I would challenge the water department to follow up on the mayor's request. And if ARPA money will be here. Now we identified the budget process for allocating it, and we've done that up to 30% of the money so far. Water department, if they're follow through in the mayor's request, water utility, and if ARPA money needs to be allocated to help do that, in your opinion, then come to the council or go to the water commission, ask for it, and then ask the council for the money. But for us just to approve it and then say, here's 200, maybe it's $500,000, I don't know. Maybe 50,000 would do it. I don't know if 200,000 is the right number. But so without having more structure and information as to how it's going to be operated, who's to be responsible, whose workload is going to be added to manage the revolving fund, those kinds of things. I'm hard pressed to allocate 200,000 of ARPA money to do that right now.
Thank you. Adam just gave me an article. NPR is saying, if, you know, for whatever it's worth, that the state of Wisconsin is expected to receive $841 million over the next 5 years for water infrastructure state revolving loan fund.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And that just came up yesterday, Don, so, and I just read it this morning, so I think it's a valuable initiative that you're trying to bring attention to. I just think that if we wait, we might get a better deal. So, and just so people know, a couple of years ago, we applied for, right, Tony? We applied for funds through the state to get lead pipe reimbursements. We were denied by the state of Wisconsin because it's based on per income capita. Menasha got it, and so I had a lot of people who would ask me, how come Menasha got it and we didn't? And it was because of per capita income. Tony, you have something to add?
Yes, Mayor. So I just wanted to thank Alderman Skirms for his motion. I thought it was very admirable and I really appreciate it. The information that I'm reporting back to you was just received today, and this is a response from the DNR. The DNR's 2022 private lead service line replacements they're looking at allowing all municipalities to apply for this, not just those with which they would have under a median household income level. So now all of the municipalities have the ability to apply for this, and that includes us. In fact, I was sitting in the back scoring our city for an application, and I just need one more piece of information before we can submit this. So these changes that have been made will actually allow us to apply later this year. The actual deadline is going to be early next year for 2022 construction season. That being said, again, that's principal forgiveness. And so essentially what that is that is 100% of the homeowner cost being reimbursed back to the homeowner, which is ideally what we want. Going back to the infrastructure bill, the problem with the infrastructure bill, as I see it, is that it's not necessarily 100% principal forgiveness, but per the DNR, it's 49% principal forgiveness, 51% loan. So again, if we can get the homeowner the best deal, that's what we should do. And so, again, appreciate Alderman Skirms. Alderman Skirms and I had a nice discussion this evening about this recent information. So, that being said, we will work hard to try to get as much lead out of the ground as we can in the next up and coming years. We've got plenty of it out there. We were left plenty of it from years past, and our goal, one of our top priorities, is to get it out.
All right, thank you. Alderman Skirms? Are you withdrawing it?
I did withdraw.
Okay. All right, we have some alternatives on this, and I'd be glad to work with you on that because I think it's a good program. A lot of money is going to be thrown at it at some point. Alderman Skirms.
I'll make this brief. I mentioned this before. I think there's potentially significant benefit in bringing in some professional assistance in our grant rating. It's clear to me that we are not going after some grants because we don't have resources, or basically it's a resource issue. What I would propose to do is allocate $25,000 from the redevelopment fund that has a current balance of $30,000 to permit community development to hire professional grant writing skills as needed to help them with their grant writing in 2022.
All right. Alderman Skirms moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Lundrum seconds it. John, would that be just for community development or?
No, I think that's where it
citywide?
should live. That's where it should reside, but it'd be across the city.
So it'd be across the,
Correct.
because I thought I heard you say community development, but anyone would be able to access this, okay? Any other comments or questions?
Mayor, I'm sorry if I could, just to clarify the motion. The budget currently includes $50,000 for 2022 of funds that will go into the redevelopment fund. And there also is, Director Hayes has put an expenditure of $50,000 for sort of unknown development costs. What Alderman Skirms would be doing would be asking you to specifically earmark 25 of that 50,000 specifically for this, but we're not changing the budget per se. We've already got money borrowed for it, or we're going to have money borrowed for it, and it's already got an expenditure designation. This would just earmark that. So just so you're clear, we're not really increasing or decreasing anything.
There's no net impact.
Correct.
The only impact, I guess you could argue, is the money that Director Hayes asked for areas of the city that are not TIF have some dollars available in case they needed it for a project or whatever, and it would lower that by 25. Right? Alderman Boyette.
Director Hayes, are you good with this?
Probably not. And the reason I say that is the purpose of the funds that I think the grant writing could have value to the city. My issue is with the dollars from this particular fund. We started that fund, I believe, last year, Director Easter, or is it 2 years ago already?
It's actually 2019 was the start.
Okay, so we have been trying to build the capital in that, and the way we've prefaced that is for non-TIF areas of the city. South Commercial is a good example. If we have opportunities within those districts, we've been fortunate in South Commercial as an example. Some of the acquisitions that we've done there have been with block grant funds. We're not always sure that those are going to be available. So the intent here with the program or with this particular line item in the budget was to build it to a level, probably $200,000 to $250,000, so that we had sufficient funds available. Obviously, by earmarking 25,000 of that, it puts us off of our timeline to accumulate those dollars. So that causes me concern. The grant, I think that having spent a week and a half writing 2 grants, they're not easy. And they take time, and particularly if you're going to try and be successful, you really have to tell the story, and you have to find nuggets of information that will hopefully sway someone that's reviewing a grant. I don't know how that works for us. I really don't. It's hard for me to fathom that. I shouldn't say fathom that. It's hard for me to understand how we would do that. We have had, I can think of one situation where we did write a grant from my office. It was happened to be $1 million grant through the EPA, but it was written by an environmental consultant on our behalf, and it took 3 applications, 3 calendar years to actually get that grant. The return on that for the environmental consultant was that if we were successful in that work, they were going to do some of the consulting for us. So there was an incentive for them, and if we didn't get the grant, there was no cost, and obviously they didn't get revenue. So there may be evidence out there, and I know we talked briefly about it, Alderman Skirms and I. It's certainly an area that should be explored, given the resources that it takes to put grants together. I'm not sure that this is the right line item.
And if I could, let me just follow up on Director Hayes, because in fairness to Alderman Skirms, he and I were talking about this, and one of his suggestions was, well, we could take it from TIF. Problem is, you don't know which TIF. It could affect all TIFs. So part of the discussion was, well, here is money that's not specifically a TIF, but money that's there. If it's a good idea, we can find any number of ways to fund it.
I was going to say, so it is a good idea, but, and perhaps maybe not one sole department. I don't know. Where else would that fall into? Because it's going to affect somebody's budget.
That's why this is, again, we're in some kind of gray area territory here. It's brought up, well, what about police? What about fire? The thing we know about this city is there's so many different types of things that go on here that one person would never be, in my opinion, would never know how to write. Chris Hayes grants and Aaron Olson grants and Kevin Clone grants. It's all, these are all expertise type grants. So again, it's up to you to decide if you want to move forward on this or not, but it's again, it's a little gray at the moment.
There's just, so John, if I can ask you, do you envision someone writing these grants for us, or finding these grants availability for us, and then we have to write?
In my conversation with the Professional Grant Writers Association, they will do both. They will do either. They will help us with grant preparedness. Here's what you need to do to be responsive to grants. Here's how we should be looking 6 months downstream. Here's where to look for them. If you need wordsmithing on the department roughs it out and they make it sound pretty, you can hire them by the hour. You can hire them by the grant. I mean, there's lots of options. This would be contracted work, so depends on what the need is.
Great, thank you. Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I do see Alderman Skirm's vision on this. It is a kind of maybe a short-term sacrifice of cash in that fund, but possibly for the greater good in the future. So that's how I see that. If this does pass tonight, I would recommend that Alderman Skirms put this as a council directive to keep this in the forefront, whether it be, a consultant or taking a class, offering a class to somebody here, whatever that may be. But a council directive is probably a good idea. Otherwise, I think it's just going to sit kind of like on that financial shelf and gather dust.
Thank you.
Just one, from an administrative perspective, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but if it's administered from my office, I'm not sure when the other 10 department heads want to write a grant, who decides, I'm okay doing that, but it's going to take, I'm going to play favorites, so you're going to have to be good to me. No, I'm kidding, but in all seriousness, if we have 25,000 and we have 4 departments that need services and it costs $40,000, I don't think that's right for me to be the one determining who gets the money and who doesn't. So we have to work out how that process works.
Alderman Skirms?
And my thoughts on this would be, let's look at this. Let's try it. Let's pilot it, because my idea would be long-term, we'd have somebody in-house that 50% of their time is working on that. But I don't know that it pencils out.
Again, I think, if I could, it's a recent example, the grants that we just wrote in my office, there was an outside entity, a third party, that wrote a grant for another entity. They came to us and said, we could use some help with this. I'm going, look, I don't have time to help you with your grant. We're writing our grant. And I looked at their grant. I went, it wasn't that good, I didn't think. But it does take time. When you're trying to write 1,700 character reply to a question, which is only about 3 small paragraphs, you're trying to be very succinct and very precise and very impactful. I'm not an English major. I wasn't a big fan of English. So there's people that can tell that story probably much better than I, and can leverage those grants. We have to find those people. That's probably the biggest challenge in this whole thing, is finding the people that actually that are better writers, better storytellers than our staff is.
Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. When this topic came up, I had asked Director Keel if she could do some preliminary investigation into what other cities have grant writers, and I think you found that Green Bay and Sheboygan had grant writers. So maybe Alderman Lindrum is right in having it be a council directive to kind of investigate or check out how they do it, if it's successful, how it works, before we go into something like this, and see how it works in those cities. If it's a successful program for them, maybe that's something that we can look at for a future budget.
Okay. Anyone else? No one else? All in favor of the motion introduced by Alderman Skirms, earmark $25,000 of redevelopment fund for the development grant writing assistance services, will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. That motion fails 7, 2 ayes, 7 noes. We just have a couple more left, but are we okay?
Let's go quick.
So moved.
Okay. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Introduced by Alderman Lang. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I had suggested the removal of funding for Island Park improvements, until which time the city council could be provided with additional information about the plan for that park. This would also allow for the opportunity to investigate additional funding opportunities with interested partners. I'd like to remove that potential amendment, but I'd like to suggest or potentially make a motion the city council be informed as to the park's design plans and also have opportunity to approve those plans as we move forward on this project. We as a community are incredibly grateful to the generous donors who make so many wonderful projects in Neenah feasible and attainable. We owe a debt of gratitude to those who, over Neenah's long history, have contributed to the funding of projects that benefit all of us. We cannot do this without those donors, and we gratefully acknowledge all of those who support improvements in our community. That being said, I hope to have greater input and insight into this Island Park project moving forward. I hope the majority of City Council agrees with me.
There's a motion by Alderman Lang. Is there a second?
Second.
That's seconded by Alderman Erickson. Any comments or discussion? I would just say that this is good middle ground, and I appreciate it. I do believe that, we wouldn't even be talking about this park if a person had not come forward with funds that they're willing to donate to the park. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been bringing up Island Park this year for any improvements. Now, this money we can use to be the spark plug, and maybe, work with Theta Clark or other entities to really do something nice in that park. So I appreciate the fact that we're going to move forward, but the Common Council deserves to be kept informed on how we're going to proceed with that park. So, anyone else? All in favor of the motion by Alderman Lang will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. That motion passes 9-0. Alderman Skirms.
This is not a motion. I've already discussed this with the chief and also with Director Easker. Just the suggestion was, because of the extended delivery time of the next engine, we could negotiate the best deal by potentially half down this year and pay the other half in '23. But Director Easker and the chief will have to negotiate with the supplier to figure out what kind of discount we could get up front. So just because of the timing of this, I think it may be more relevant to split up the payments.
Yep. And keep in mind, this is also a decision that needs to be forwarded by the city of Menasha, because it's a joint effort.
Alderman Stevenson.
No, got nothing.
Oh, Alderman Boyette.
Chief, if you could just come down and do your song and dance. It's okay. He's got a minute.
I'm assuming you're talking about the
Yes, sir.
the discount. So we did talk to our rep from the committee, truck committee. It looks like the discount, if it was all prepaid up front, is $13,000, and if we did the 50-50 split, it would still save about $6,500. So it saves about half. So we can try.
We'll look at those numbers.
We'll look at them
at the time.
Thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
Doesn't the Joint Fire Rescue?
Yes, the Neenah Menasha Joint Finance Committee would, if there was a negotiation recommendation, would come from them and be at least approved by them as representatives of both communities.
Okay. So, Alderman. Okay.
You might want to ask if there's any other motions
Yeah,
that the council would want to make.
I'm trying to, we have like 3.5 minutes left. Is there any other, before we get to final passage, is there any other motions? Any other motions that anyone, it's only going to take him 1 minute to change over the tape. Just so, no, I don't want to make it appear that we're rushed or anything because of that, especially if it's only going to take a minute to change. So, but first, before that we will go to, is there any other motions that someone would like to address at this point? And there is no time limit, so we can wait for him and change that. Any other motions at this time? Alderman Lake?
Would this be a time that I could just give an update on something, or does that not matter? I could do that at the end. It's not a motion on a budget change.
You'd like?
I just wanted to report that after investigation of the cemetery chapel chimney issue, it has been determined that chimney could be removed rather than restored, and this could be done in-house. That will save a good portion of the $24,000 that was set aside for that project. With the remainder of those funds, additional needed tuck pointing and roof repair with that money, and there's also possibility that the final remaining balance could be used to fund a study to determine the cost of rehabbing that historic property that has for too long been overlooked. And I just wanted to say I'm very grateful for the excellent work that the Parks and Recreation Department does and all the departments in the city do to ensure that we remain flexible and open to alternative and creative ways to best use taxpayer dollars.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. I will ask one more time if there's any other motions, to make sure everyone has the opportunity. We have a new tape in the system, so we're good for another 4 hours, I'm told. All right. Hearing no other motions, Alderman Stevenson?
We have a
already
motion
did.
that's been amended about 12 times.
But as amended.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor that's been amended, and Mike probably has some final numbers for us.
The levy has stayed the same at just over 20 million. Tax rate stayed the same. Borrowing is currently at 15.315 million, so that went down a little bit. And the use of ARPA funds was increased by a total of 50,000. So we're just at 1.2 million of ARPA funds still remaining, assuming your recommendation for ARPA funds. So there we go.
All right. So there is a motion as amended for consideration of resolution number 2021-17 to adopt the 2022 operating budget and the 2022 capital improvements program budget for the city of Neenah. Any comment? Anyone? I would take just a moment or two just to say I appreciate the work that was done by everyone. You know, we have some newer members, and I can tell people did their homework, so I appreciate that. And, you know, we, once again, we're civil to each other and respectful. There's times we're going to disagree in that, and that's expected, but we can do it with civility in that, so I appreciate that. A good document. At the end of the day, it's a good document. It's a good document for the city, good document for the people that have to implement it, and it's a good document for the citizen, because levels of service not going down. We're going to continue the high-quality service that they have come to expect, and you know, we'll do some more things next year to help make this a better place. So I appreciate the efforts by everyone, and thank you very much. So that being said, Alderman Stevens.
Yeah, just a quick, I always take a second to thank the department heads and all the staff that have I always go above and beyond call of duty and answering our questions, and we truly respect and thank you for the work that you do to provide us the information that we need to make these decisions. So thank you.
Anyone else? Stephanie Schott came home from Hawaii for oh. All right, well, with that being said, please entertain the
Motion to adjourn?
roll call for
We have a motion on the floor. It's been
for,
amended. All we gotta do is vote.
consideration consideration of resolution number 2021-17. All in favor will vote aye. Any opposed, vote no. Clerk opens the roll. That motion passes 9-0. Very much. Reminder to people that did notice the meeting for tomorrow night, but will not be necessary at all because we've conducted all of our business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Boyette, seconded by Alderman Stevenson for adjournment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.
Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.